It was supposed to be the perfect Christmas, a fresh start, a new home. But the night the Ammons family moved in, they unknowingly stepped into something that would forever haunt their lives, a presence so dark that even Christmas lights flickered in fear. But this isn't just a ghost story. This happened. It was December 2011 when Latoya Ammons and her children moved into a modest, two-story home on Carolina Street in Gary, Indiana. The house was an old one, slightly worn at the edges but full of potential. After weeks of searching for a place to call home, this was supposed to be their refuge. Christmas was near, and the kids were excited about decorating, the lights, the tree, the holiday magic. It was a picture-perfect scene, one that felt full of hope. But something felt off. Latoya, like any new homeowner, was eager to settle in. But it was only a matter of days before she noticed that the house didn't feel as welcoming as it should have. It started small. Strange noises. Footsteps in the hallway when no one was there. Doors opening and closing on their own. Latoya's mother, Rosa, would swear she heard voices late at night. The family brushed it off at first. Old houses creak, after all. A little chill in the air? Probably just bad insulation. But when a cold breeze swept through the house on a night when the heat was cranked up, and the lights began to flicker for no reason, the question began to linger: was something here with them? And then, late one night, a sound unlike any other. On the evening of December 20th, 2011, the Ammons family experienced something they would never forget. Latoya was alone, sitting in the living room when she heard it. A soft whisper. "Leave." At first, she thought it was her imagination. But as the days passed, the whispers grew louder. Always when no one else was around. Always at night. "Get out." The children heard it too. And it wasn't just voices. The children began to act strangely. Their laughter, once full of joy, was replaced by bouts of inexplicable fear. They would wake in the middle of the night, pale, whispering things they couldn't remember saying. Was it a prank? A nightmare? Or something worse? Latoya was terrified, but she kept hoping it was just stress. But then the lights began to flicker in the most unsettling way, and that was just the beginning. The moment that no one in the Ammons family would ever forget came late on Christmas Eve. Latoya was asleep when she heard her youngest child screaming in the next room. Rushing in, she found her son, just 7 years old, standing on the wall, walking backward. Latoya's heart stopped. This was no dream. This was no trick of the light. The child was defying gravity, his body walking up the wall, eyes glazed over in horror. Latoya screamed, pulling him off the wall, but he had no memory of what had just happened. Latoya's heart stopped. This was no dream. This was no trick of the light. The child was defying gravity, his body walking up the wall, eyes glazed over in horror. Latoya screamed, pulling him off the wall, but he had no memory of what had just happened. She called the police. She called a priest. But no one had answers. And so, for weeks, the terror continued. Cold spots in every room. The sound of footsteps behind them, even when no one was there. Doors that locked on their own, yet opened without explanation. But the worst was yet to come. Latoya and her family tried to fight back, but what they were dealing with was no ordinary haunting. And in the darkest hours, the house had begun to reveal its true nature, a place that thrived on fear. The question is, what happens when you confront something that has waited years to find its way back? As Latoya and her family tried to make sense of what they had witnessed, they began digging into the history of their home. What they uncovered sent shivers down their spines. The house on Carolina Street had been built in the late 1800s, a relic of another time. But more troubling than the age of the house was the darkness buried deep within its past. Through local records, Latoya learned that the house had been the site of tragedy, multiple deaths over the decades. But it wasn't the deaths themselves that haunted the town, it was the circumstances. Families who had lived in the house reported strange occurrences, the same cold drafts, the same whispering voices. But the most chilling revelation came from a nearby neighbor, who claimed that a previous owner had mysteriously vanished without a trace. By mid-January, the events had escalated beyond anything Latoya could explain. It wasn't just doors creaking or lights flickering anymore. At night, she began hearing the whispers again, but this time, they were clearer. Leave. She would lie awake in the dark, the sound of footsteps pacing back and forth in the hallway. But when she checked, there was no one there. Then, one evening, after Latoya had put the children to bed, she walked down the hallway towards the kitchen. She was startled by what she saw. A figure, a silhouette standing in the darkened living room. She froze, her heart racing. But just as quickly as it had appeared, it vanished into thin air. Her eyes darted across the room. No one was there. It wasn't just Latoya who was being affected. The children, too, began experiencing terrifying phenomena. It started with nightmares. Screams in the middle of the night. They would wake, drenched in sweat, telling stories of figures standing by their bedsides. But it was what happened one night that would change everything. Latoya's son, the youngest, was found standing at the top of the stairs in the middle of the night. He wasn't just sleepwalking, he was standing there, staring into the empty air, his body stiff and unblinking. The most chilling part? He couldn't remember a thing. When Latoya tried to wake him, he whispered, "The man with the black eyes is watching me." Who was this man with black eyes? Latoya couldn't shake the feeling that something was watching them all. Something that wanted them gone. Unable to cope with the growing terror, Latoya sought help. She turned to a local priest, Father Michael, hoping that his words could bring peace to the chaos. But when Father Michael arrived, he too felt the oppressive presence in the house. His first words as he crossed the threshold were chilling. "There is something here, something that doesn't want us here." But Father Michael, a man of faith, didn't back down. As Father Michael began to pray over the house, the air seemed to grow colder. The walls creaked. The lights flickered. The family watched in horror as the crucifix he held began to shake violently in his hands. Suddenly, the room grew silent, a terrifying stillness that seemed to settle over the entire house. The situation had reached its breaking point. Latoya, now desperate, turned to the paranormal experts for help. With the priest's blessing, they organized an exorcism. The moment they began the ritual, the temperature in the house plummeted. Windows shattered without cause, and the walls screamed as if alive. The very foundation of the house seemed to be shaking under the weight of the darkness within it. And then, as suddenly as it began, the house fell silent. The darkness was gone. The oppressive force that had filled the house for so long vanished. But Latoya knew, deep down, that they would never truly be free. Because what they had encountered was not just a haunting, it was something much older. And much more dangerous. Latoya and her family left the house on Carolina Street shortly after the exorcism. They never returned. The house, however, remained empty. Waiting. And as for Latoya, she knew that the nightmare wasn't truly over. The terror that had gripped her family still lingered in her thoughts, a constant reminder that some things cannot be erased by exorcisms or prayers. Some say the house on Carolina Street still stands today. The question is, who will be next?